Can you imagine generating $1 million in your Amazon business in 1 week? Some people shoot for 1 million a year, but 1 week, $1 million driving through your business. That's what today's guest has done. He started his Amazon business just in 2020. And just a couple years later, he was hitting $1 million week in his Amazon business. If you are in the e-commerce space, you're in the entrepreneurship space, you are going to glean some serious wisdom from today's episode with David Lang. All right. So, David, welcome to the show.
Hey, nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Okay, David, before we talk Amazon, because you have an incredible journey building an Amazon business, selling it. I know a lot of our community is going to love this story. I have a burning question for you. I'm drinking coffee right now, and I want to know, do you drink the coffee on the airplane?
I do, but only because like our business class, they actually have like an espresso pad. So I get like a nice espresso. But even the filter coffee is not too bad. Yeah.
Okay. I've heard some things about the coffee. I heard a podcast about, I'm sure you've heard. So David is a pilot, if you're tuning in this episode, and not just like a small plane pilot. I mean, you're flying the big boys, the
Right.
Airbuses. And so I heard this thing about the coffee. And so now I've been a little hesitant.
Well, it is the same water. I'm not going to lie. It is the same water on the entire aircraft. We have one water tank that goes for the sinks and the toilets and for the coffee machine, but it's not like it goes to the sink and the toilet first and then goes to the coffee machine.
Yeah.
So it's, and we do have filters.
Yes, I know. I think it's one of those things, press can spin anything any direction, and they like to stir up fear and all these things. I'm like, I just like the coffee,
I know.
I just like the coffee. I'm gonna keep drinking it, I think. So that was my first question for you.
Love
But
it.
man, so you're flying planes and then Amazon kind of lands in your lap. Tell us about this. Like when you first heard about selling on Amazon, like what were those initial thoughts? Was it skepticism? Was it,
Oh,
hey,
100%.
I think this is for me? Like tell me about, bring us back to that moment.
Yeah, I mean, I'll never forget it because it was 2018. I had just switched from flying regional jets in Europe. So I was on the Airbus 320 flying all over Europe, and I switched to long haul to do the more longer international flights to Asia and North America and stuff. And we had at our airline, we had a shortage of instructors and I had to do 6 training flights. But because of a shortage of instructors, those 6 training flights took me 6 months to do, which as you can imagine is great. I had 1 flight a month. I was at home. My wife, we just had kids. So it was a really nice time. But I was sitting at home thinking, it's like, man, I've always wanted to do some business. And if I don't do it now, where I have all this free time, I'll probably never do it. So that was kind of like the encouragement. And I just finished reading the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, who talks about like, making sure you grow your assets and, don't just spend time working for money. So I was looking at, okay, what are different assets groups I could try to collect, and as I was doing this research, you know how the internet is, right? You start getting retargeted with ads. You guys are good at that. So one day I'm in the office. It's New Year's Eve, okay, for 2019. Okay. I think my wife is getting ready. We're going to have like a New Year's party. And I'm sitting at the computer. I'm just online waiting. And I get this YouTube ad. And it was for a course in Australia, actually, reliable education. I have no idea how this ad made it to Germany. Someone probably forgot like a settings button. Hey, changed my life.
Click the wrong button.
They clicked the wrong button. And this guy, Adam Hudson, he had a picture of basically Robert Kiyosaki, right? Like the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad. And he's talking about it. And he's saying, if you are looking for the right assets, it's a product that you can sell on Amazon. And normally I skip ads, but I think this was the first YouTube ad I ever watched in its entirety. And after that, I'm like, oh man. And he totally got me because he's like, if you don't sign up this year, starting next year, the prices go up. Right. And it was New Year's Eve, man. So I got the credit card. I'm like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it. And I signed up. And then I told my wife, I'm like, look, I don't know if this is a scam. It could be because I mean, he had all these fancy screenshots of like regular people doing like $30,000 revenue a month, 100,000. And I'm like, man, this guy's good at Photoshop. There's no way. Because that amount of money, to me, I mean, that's a yearly salary. You know what I mean? That's not a monthly revenue intake, especially for a regular person off one product. But man, I signed up and that's kind of what started the whole thing, was reliable education in Australia.
Wow. That's powerful. Now, were you entrepreneurial before, like kind of like in your earlier life? Were you doing any entrepreneurial business things like that?
Not really. I mean, I've always enjoyed business and management. So I did my master's degree in London in air transport management. And then through that degree, I actually got a job on the side of my airline doing project management. And I was working with different startups to, do cooperations with our airline and see where we can, benefit from the startup scene a bit. So I've always liked business. I like the creativity of it. So flying airlines is very scientific. There's
Mm.
procedures. You're not allowed to, you're not supposed to deviate from
Yeah.
procedures, right?
Yeah.
So
Don't break the rules.
don't break the rules. But I do think I'm a creative guy and I do like creativity. I love it. And I like
Yeah.
the business gives you that freedom. There is no book on how to do business.
Hmm.
It's your book. You make it up as you go, which is a challenging part, but it's also very creative.
Yeah.
And the reason why I decided to do like an online course, I've always been good at school. And it's like, I knew if I could just follow a program, I could do well at that program. And I just
Yeah.
wanted to save some time in figuring out all the steps myself by saying, I'll just follow a program. I'll probably do well in at least the program and I'll set goals along the way as I do it. So that's
Yeah.
why I chose to just jump in.
That's awesome. I mean, from what I've heard about your story too, I love that you kind of combined these two things. Like you got the creativity, the kind of rebel nature of entrepreneurship. Like I'm going to break the rules
Yeah.
and do something kind of outside the mold. But then as it started to grow, which we'll get into, like you started to bring in checklists, right? And
Yeah.
like, that's very much a pilot thing. Like it's like, hey, all of the checklists, like make sure
And,
that
and
like, the systems, the processes. So we've seen that in our business. Like in the beginning, it was just so well, just whatever, like, just winging it. And then as you grow, you're like, wow, you really start to have to track things, have to have procedures, have to have SOPs, especially if you want to sell the business, which you've done. So a lot of our rainmakers in our community, we call them aspirational ringers who really have the big dream, not just to have the side hustle, but to really build the brand and sell it. I think hearing kind of your process is going to be really valuable. So take us back, I guess, to that maybe first couple years. Okay, you're going through the program. What about that first product? What was it about the first product? You're like, I feel like this is the one. Because I think a lot of our people get stuck in the paralysis analysis, mode.
so the way I always explain it to people, it's kind of like if you read the instructions for like a very complicated board game, like Settlers of Catan, I love it. It's very
Yeah.
complicated. You don't fully
Yeah.
understand the rules of the game though until you play a couple rounds, and that's when you start getting good at it, and then you can actually start building strategies upon your own experience. So I realized very early on is like I'm not going to waste too much time trying to find the perfect product because chances are I don't even know what a perfect product means. So I just set a goal. I have to finish reliable education, go through all the models, set up all the business stuff, and have to launch by the end of the year. So I gave myself a full year, said I'm going to do all the training and I'm going to, source a product I'm going to launch. And I managed to launch a product just in time because the end of December 2019, then it was on the
Okay.
water. We launched February 7th, 2020.
Okay.
And in like
Yeah. Perfect
March,
timing.
COVID hit, right? So I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
So it's
Oh
like,
my goodness.
and that's where my life, like, as you can imagine, as an airline pilot, that's the first time I really, for a very
Yeah.
established European airline, it was the first time I feared my job, you know?
Wow. Yeah.
And it's like we were grounded and the airline almost went
Yeah.
bankrupt. So it was a very difficult time because my wife, she was at home, she wasn't working. We had two small kids. We still had our mortgage to pay. All my savings was now in this product because I said, hey, I'm going to
Yeah.
launch my new product, right? So it was a very
Wow.
tricky time for that to happen. And then I'm like, it's okay. Let's see how this works out. And the first product was an absolute dud. But like I said, I didn't know what I was doing. Reliable education, they really put a focus on making sure you differentiate your product, make it different.
Yeah.
They kind of described Amazon kind of like a Tinder. You want to stand out, you want to attract
Okay.
people. I think I differentiated a bit too much. So
Okay.
we had this very cool concept and it was very unique. The people that found it loved it because they
Yeah.
liked that uniqueness, but there weren't enough people looking for it. I think
Ah.
that was the hardest part is no one was searching it. And I didn't understand search volume, keyword research, any of that. So we launched our first product, absolute dud, personal life, like in Rex, financially very tight.
Yeah.
I'm grounded for like 4 or 5 months at a time. I would just do a couple flights to Asia to pick up like surgical masks for Germany. Like we would
Wow.
restock the hospital. So I was doing like emergency flights, but that's
Wow.
it. So very, very difficult time. But then we basically said, okay, two options, quit, cut our losses, or we can like double down, try to figure this out and take all of our learnings from our failed product, flip it around and say, let's do everything that went wrong here differently.
Wow.
That's the time where a friend of mine who is also essentially grounded, it's Ryan. Ryan he has a PhD in molecular biology and
Okay.
he was doing RNA research, which is funny because before COVID, no one knew what RNA was, but because of the
Yeah.
RNA vaccine, everyone knows what RNA is, right?
Got it.
So Ryan, he was working in a lab. He had a contract, but it was for a university. And the problem is all universities were shut down and he had home office, but you can't do RNA research at home.
Yeah.
It was essentially paid at home, no work to do. And he was
Got
just
it.
seeing me. He'd always want to get to, hey, let's hang out. You're off. I'm off. I'm like, oh, I'm busy. I got to work. He's like, what are you working? I thought you were a pilot. So then I would explain to him that I'm trying to sell products on Amazon. He started looking at it. He's really good with Photoshop. So he's helping me like redo my listings and stuff.
Okay.
And that's
Yeah.
kind of when he came into the picture. And I say, you know what? Look, if we can figure this out together, there could be huge potential here. Let's make this official. And because I also needed capital, I said, how about I sell you a third of my company? I've done all the startup. We can literally just hit the ground running. We'll take that buy-in as capital
Okay.
to launch new products. So I won't even take it
Yeah.
out. I'm going to put it right back in. So he just finished paying off a student loan, which is funny. And he used that money. He still had a student line of credit. He's like, all right,
Yeah.
let's do this together. And yeah, we put
Wow.
our faith in us and that's it.
Wow.
Yeah.
David, I want you to come back to this moment. The world feels like it's ending, right? Like COVID's happening. The news is, I mean, every time you're on Facebook, drama, craziness, flights are grounded. You got two young kids at the time. Like most people, I think 90% of people would probably quit. So what kept you going in that, like, kind of like in that we call that the abyss, right? You're
Yeah.
kind of like, I don't know, like you're in that in between.
It's funny because it was right before that moment, right before all of that happened. My life was probably the best it's ever been, but it made me feel very uncomfortable because I've never had such a comfortable life before. So like I grew up relatively poor. We were a single mom, 5 kids. We're on like the Canadian welfare system. She was home. Like we had no money. All my flight training was like through the military and then through the airlines. We never had money. I moved 14 times before I was 18. So it was
Wow.
always tight, always a struggle. But that was normal for me. It was always normal. And then now for the first time in my life, I mean, I have a great job. We have a beautiful home. I have 2 kids, a beautiful wife. We've been together almost 20 years now. Everything was like perfect. But that
Yeah.
like comfort, that perfect actually made me feel uncomfortable because for the
Yeah.
first time in my life, had a lot to lose. Before if you don't have nothing to lose, your back's against the wall, you can only go up. It feels comfortable. And
Yeah.
the funny thing is when now COVID hit, I'm like, I know this place. I know where I am. And it's like, I was ready. I'm like, I got this. And where a lot of my colleagues, they went through very hard times, depressions, uncertainty. And for me, it was more of an opportunity to say like, okay, I'm going to do this again. I got this.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's so powerful. Almost like that looking back and seeing that resilience for years, I think that's such a powerful strategy because when you look back on like in the moment, it's really easy to focus on like the facts, right? Like
Right.
this is what's happening.
Yeah.
Product isn't doing well. I spend all the money, 2 young kids, and that like you can get in the facts, you can get freaked out, right? But you look back and you're like, I overcame this, I overcame that, and somehow I've come out, on top. So it keeps you in that momentum.
One added pressure was for the first time though, is now you're the dad. Now you're the one making a decision. It was like my dumb idea to do this Amazon business on the side took my family's financial reserve into a product that now also failed. You start feeling a bit guilty and you're responsible for your kids. And like the deal was always my wife wanted to stay home with the kids. She works in the hospital normally. And it's like, going back to the hospital now just because she has to, especially during COVID, you don't want to go back to work at the hospital during COVID. Right. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was that added pressure. That was a bit new. Is the fact that, my decisions now affect other people a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's big. We see that in our community too, moms who come in and it's like, hey, we're taking a risk on this thing, and entrepreneurship is a risk, right? It is. And I think we talked about this before the episode. There is this element of risk, and this risk reversal as much as you can, but also a little bit of luck and a little bit of just like timing and things like that. I mean, so you launched a product, it's 2020. I know Amazon did well in 2020, right? Everyone's home.
They
Did you
did,
see
yeah.
any of that or like did that help the business?
Not the first product, right? So,
Okay,
I
not the
mean,
first one.
yeah. So Ryan buys in, we sit down,
Okay.
we start doing online courses, right? We're following Brandon Young. We did some
Yeah.
courses with Amy Weiss, Brian Johnson's PPC. Like we're trying,
Cool.
we realize we don't know a lot, but we know how to learn stuff. He's a smart guy. I mean, he's a really smart guy, and we're like,
Yeah.
let's divide and conquer. We tackle different parts. We learn as much as we can. We locked ourselves up. And then we said, okay, we think we know what we need. We just need to really target the search volume keywords. We have to be hyper focused. We have to have a strategy. And then we relaunched and we launched 3 products that November.
Okay.
And
Wow.
we were extremely conservative because remember, we had no budget. So we were doing everything ourselves, photography ourselves, the Photoshop
Yep.
editing ourselves. everything. We did everything ourselves, and to try to save as much money as possible. And when we launched, we actually finished the year. So we I mean, the first product I remember, we ordered 576, right?
Okay.
Because it fit perfectly in the cartons. And it took us more than a
Yeah.
year to sell those out. And then we were very conservative on the second one. We're like, look, we'll even pay more because it's below MOQ, but we want to make sure that we don't order too much. And we did not order enough. So that first year, as soon
Wow.
as we launched in November, I mean, it was a Q4 rush in 2020, everyone shopping
Yeah.
online. So we turned off all our PPC, said, okay, let's reorder as quickly as possible. But we finished the first year with about $73,000 in revenue. And that was more or
Wow.
less break even, paying back for all the
Yeah.
courses and the learnings and the samples and stuff like that in the first failed product. But at least we finished break even. And I think the main thing we gained was not the financial reward, was the confidence. We knew like, okay, we got this. We figured it out. Like we had a strategy. We thought it might work and it ended up working. And that's when we decided, okay, let's double down. And the good thing is I reached out right away. I recognized there's momentum online, COVID shutdown, still in effect in 2021, right? There's still a huge
Yep.
massive shopping. I actually thought the COVID bubble would stick a bit longer because the people that got used to shopping online, I thought they might have stuck around a bit longer. And so we said, we're going to go all in. And I found a company that we couldn't get a loan from any bank because
Yeah. Yeah.
we're a US LLC under a German
Okay.
holding corporation. The German banks are like, well, you're not operating here, so there's nothing here.
Yeah.
I'm not giving you a loan. The US banks say, you don't have a social security number. We're not going to give you a loan. So
Yeah.
we found this startup, and it was just by being in one of the Facebook groups, 8Fig. And,
Okay.
they were just starting out. We were just starting out. We didn't have a long track record, but neither did they. And we kind of pitched them. It felt like we were on Shark Tank, which was really fun.
Yeah.
But it was awesome. And I remember I was in Mexico actually in the hotel because I was flying and I was in the hotel and I had a flight
Okay.
doing it with like broken internet and I'm showing them
Yeah.
all our Excel slides. But they liked us and they said, look, we'll take a chance and we'll fund you guys $300,000 to launch, to grow this company. We'll
Wow.
pay all your supply chain. And
Wow.
man, the second year we ended up finishing. So the first year, 73,000 break even. The second year we did 3.1 million at 29% profit margin. Yeah. It was great.
That's amazing. And that's like, I mean, for people listening, I mean, industry standard on Amazon is probably 15 to 20%, right? So that's incredible profit margin
Yeah.
and incredible return. I mean, so tell me about that. Cause I think a lot of our people, they find that kind of similar point where it's like, I have a little bit of momentum. I see the potential, but I need money now. Like
Yeah.
e-commerce is such a capital heavy like business. And so what do you think went in your favor on that meeting with 8Fig? Like, or, if someone was going to get into a meeting like that, ask a family friend, like, uh, what do you think attracted them to you guys? Like, what were you showing them?
You got to be prepared for that meeting, right? And Ryan and I were both Excel nerds. We love Excel.
Yeah.
We actually
Yeah.
saw some of our spreadsheets from our journey, right? We love Excel. It's like one of the thing we would, to calm ourselves down at night from a long day of working with Amazon Seller Central and PPC, to
Yeah.
relax, we would go to Excel because the nice thing with Excel is it's either right or wrong. The formula works or doesn't. And it's really fun for us. It's a game. So
Yeah.
we had all these cool forecasting tools that we had built ourselves. And we would show them, listen, we know that we're going to hit this number on Mother's Day. We're selling gifts because our competitor who has a normal baseline on an average Tuesday of, let's say, 100 units a day, last Mother's Day, he went from 100 to 10,000,
Oh,
right?
wow. Yeah.
So if our average baseline is about 30 a day, well, then we should expect the same multiple at least that he did. And then we would draw out
Oh,
the curve matching his. And we
yeah.
presented our numbers and said, for us to achieve this, we need this many units. The entire
Mm.
cost, including supply chain, will be this, but our return should be this. And by just very simply breaking it down to them, they knew we weren't guessing.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's so cool. I love that strategy of like, we talk about, because sometimes people think of, oh, I'm getting an investor. Think of it like kind of Ryan, where it's like this big complicated thing, partnership, I mean, no, it was not that complicated, but you don't want to just like partner with anyone, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's like a marriage. You want to make sure it's really good, right? But an inventory investor, a lot less kind of, intensive. I mean, are you comfortable sharing the deal there? Was it like a debt thing where you had to pay back a percentage, or was it equity?
Well,
How'd that?
no equity because I didn't want to give up equity. I already sold a
Yeah,
third, right? And I'm like, look, now it's working. Now I definitely don't want to give up more, especially if
yeah,
you're not a working partner. Like the last thing I wanted was a silent partner. Um,
yeah,
and so essentially what 8Fig does, I mean, honestly, they're a really great solution for people similar to us who have very little other options. most banks will only give a business loan if you have 2-3 years of business experience or history.
Yeah.
I mean, most Amazon sellers, if you get lucky with a successful
Yeah.
product in your first or second try, so the reason why I think, before I explain who the funder is and all that, I'll explain a
Yeah.
bit more. But the reason why I think funding is so important is because bootstrapping your business. So bootstrapping means you're going to wait for the profits of it to buy more inventory and try to grow yourself. The reason why
Yeah.
I don't think that works on Amazon is because the marketplace is way too fierce. The competition is crazy. If you show people you're successful, by the time, like, give it 6 to 9 months, you're going to have 20 other competitors doing exactly what you're doing. And if you didn't grow fast enough in those 6 to 9 months head start that you have, you don't have a moat of reviews around you, sales velocity, subscribe and save customers. All of that stuff is missing. So our objective was, we notice something works before competition comes in. We got to grow now.
Yeah.
And that's why funding is important.
That's powerful. Yeah, I love that. Like, because there is like, I mean, because you've done all the product research. There's certain products you look at and you're like, these guys are untouchable. I will never go in this niche. You want to be that guy.
You
You
want to
want
be
to
that
be
guy.
that brand. Like, and it takes time to be that brand, and having that speed is really powerful.
It's
I love
very,
the way
very
you said that.
powerful. And so the company is 8Fig. You can look them up. It's 8Fig for 8 figures. Really cool name, actually. I like
Yeah,
it. And
cool.
8Fig, essentially what they do is they do, you only pay a cost of capital. So for example, if they say your product costs you $6 to make, and let's say $2 to ship and all that stuff, landing costs of $8, we'll give you this $8. And when you sell it, you got to give us that $8 back, plus a cost of capital of, let's say, I don't know, 15 cents or 20 cents.
Okay.
These are all
Yeah.
just rough numbers. I didn't calculate anything in my head.
Yeah.
But they give you this kind of repayment plan. And the nice thing is it's flexible. If the market changes and you say, you know what, I'm not going to place the next order, or instead of only ordering 10,000 units, I'm going to order 20,000 units, you can actually
Mhm.
ask for more funding and they'll support it. Or if you say, look,
Wow.
my sales are lower, I don't want to order 10,000, I want to lower it a bit, then you can go in and change the numbers that you're going to order. So it's a flexible solution. And if you have the profit margin, remember, we had 29% margin. I don't mind if I
Mhm.
lose 3 or 4% to 8Fig, right? I
Yeah.
don't mind. It'll
Yeah.
allow me to grow. So I think it's super important. And this is a second thing for funding. Never fund a bad product, because funding is leveraging your current position.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you have a good product, put gas on that fire, man. You want it to go bigger. But if you have a struggling product, you're just funding a headache. You're going to make it worse. So just be very careful for any product. Don't fund a bad product.
As entrepreneurs and parents, convenience is key. But that doesn't mean you should have to sacrifice quality. For years, we nerded out on coffee, trying to get the highest quality, but that takes a lot of time, weighing the beans, getting the right grind, getting your water to the perfect temperature. And so when we had kids, we kind of shifted to the pod system, right? And it was a major downgrade. That was until we found X Bloom.
X Bloom works with the best roasters around the country, and their machine truly brings the specialty coffee shop experience to your home. If you love a good pour over, I highly recommend you check this out. You can elevate your coffee drinking experience while keeping up with your kids. If you're ready to transform your mornings, head to rainmakerfamily.com/deals to get started. That's rainmakerfamily.com/deals.
Yeah, yeah. So this brand that you built, you said it was in the gifting niche. Was it very seasonal like that? You saw like different holidays. You have to really, I mean, that means you're going to stock up a lot in advance and then
And that
sell
makes
out
it
or,
so hard. Yeah. Cause it's like hitting the wave, right? It was,
oh man.
I don't know if I'll do it again. It was very stressful, especially with
Yeah.
like we were talking a bit before the show about like good times and bad times.
Uh-huh.
When you sell, like, so we would have different milestones, because in Reliable Education, they would have awards, right? Like if you do
Yeah.
100,000 in a month revenue, you're a rhino. And I
Okay.
remember when we started, our first dud product, we would sell like one a day. I'm like, how are people doing rhino? It's impossible. And then once we
Yeah.
launched the new products once we got back in stock in February after that first initial Christmas, we actually hit the rhino status, 100,000 in a month. And then
Awesome.
Reliable, they have an award. It's called White Rhino. It means you're even more rare than a rhino. And it's, if you can keep that 100,000 a month, almost every month consistently, then you can hit 1 million in a year, essentially.
Yeah.
So if you hit 1 million in a year, you're a white rhino. So after we hit
Okay.
the Rhino Award, we're like, all right, we want White Rhino. And then we hit it by August that year. So we're like, awesome. And then after that, there were no higher awards.
Yeah.
But we kept making up our own to try to motivate us. So we said, okay, if we did 1 million in a year, do you think we can do 1 million in a month?
Yeah.
So we're like, all right, it's Christmas time. We sell gifts. If we really plan it well and take all of our learnings and go all in, Like we have to go big. We might be
Yeah.
able to do a million in a month for, Christmas.
Mhm.
And we ended up hitting it. But during that
Wow.
month, we start getting attacked by hijackers.
Oh my
People are trying
gosh.
to shut
Yeah.
down our listing. And if you shut down our listing for 2 weeks in Christmas, like we're done. All our
Yeah.
inventory's there. We're paying high storage fees because it's
Oh man.
Q4. And like we
Yeah.
would wake up to these hate emails, like we won't let you sell. And it was like poor English and it was horrible. So a lot
Yeah.
of stress. And I mean, this is Christmas time when you're supposed to be with your friends and family and having a good time. And it's for us
Yeah.
the most stressful time of the year.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
but we ended
Wow.
up solving all of those issues, which is nice. So we would always, try to take that one step back, kind of treat it like if we're in the cockpit of an airplane saying, okay, it's a Mayday. We got an emergency here.
Yeah.
How do we deal with it? Right. And then we would follow the same concepts as in the cockpit and try to break it down into solving the issue.
Wow. Yeah.
But it was
If you guys are
stressful,
hearing
man. It
this,
was stressful.
yeah. If you're hearing this and you're a new seller, this is why we say avoid seasonal products on your first product.
Definitely. And
Maybe
you know what?
second, third. And just like, it is one of those things you're just like, and I'm always like, don't try to sell also one-time seasonal products, right? Like the solar eclipse glasses or
Or like
something, right?
Halloween. Don't
Because
do
they,
Halloween, man. Because everyone,
yeah,
you
like
have the highest return rate.
oh yeah, that's right. Like you don't want to be so stressed that like if the boat doesn't show up or whatever, you're gonna miss it. Like I'm always telling people, if you feel like you're time pressured on it, like it's probably already too late.
And the craziest thing is after we did that million in a month, Ryan and I,
Yeah.
we had a little celebration and we're having a drink and he's like, "Hey Dave, what's next?" And I'm like, "We're
Yeah.
gonna, we're gonna do a million a week."
Yeah.
Might have been like just a drunken blurt out.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
swear, man, we looked at each other for like 2 minutes and we said, "You know what? Let's pull out our laptops." We start calculating how much inventory will we need.
Yeah.
Is it possible? Man, we made it our goal. We said, okay, we're going to do a million in a week over Mother's Day. And we're going to
Okay.
absolutely crush it. And we did. We ended up doing
Wow.
1.2 million in a week. We'd hit the million in 5 days. It was crazy.
That's wild.
It
It's
was
funny because
absolute.
like at some point it becomes math.
Yeah,
It becomes math and mindset. It's
that's
just
right.
like, okay, you build the like at your beginning, there's no way you could even think it was possible to do a million a week. That
No,
would like break your paradigm. But then you like build these confidence levels of like, whoa, I know it. Like, I know I have the, the confidence to make that big of an order, right? Like,
no,
and like the faith, you kind of like build these faith levels. And then it's math. It's like, okay, we do this number, we order this much, we get this, price on the units. So that's where these spreadsheets come into handy. Like, I'm a big spreadsheet guy too. Like, whenever I'm trying to make a big faith decision, right? Where I'm like, can we afford the house or can we buy the inventory? I always go to a spreadsheet. I'm like, let me just run the worst case scenario. Let me run the mid case scenario. Let me run the best case scenario.
You know what's really
And that
good?
gets,
What you just
yeah,
said, and I really want to drive that home for other people too, is what you're doing is you're saying, what if it's the worst case and the best case? And a lot of people don't do the worst case. Like that
yeah,
safety margin is so important. And
yeah,
it's really hard to still plan that in when everything's going well in your business. When you're on fire,
yeah,
and you're like running, it's like at the casino, you can never lose because you won the first five hands, right? That's the worst
yeah,
time to make a bet is when you feel like you can't lose. Um,
yeah,
but if you pre-program that safety margin into your spreadsheet, then it protects you, right?
yeah, yeah.
Even from your own emotional bet.
That's very true. Yeah, you have to, it's hard. It's the balance of, faith and the emotion of that, but like also the math and like kind of taking emotion out of it a little bit, right?
Well,
It's kind
that's
of like
where
in
a
real
partner
estate. They're
sometimes
like,
comes in handy. So, I mean,
yeah,
I'll tell the story proudly, but when that Mother's Day, so the first Mother's Day, we did really well. This was the Mother's Day 2020.
okay,
No,
yeah,
sorry, 2021,
2021.
because
Yeah,
2020 was like the crappy product, but
yeah,
2021, we had the good products in our Mother's Day. Man, we thought we were going big and we noticed early on is like, oh, we did not go big enough. I mean, we
yeah,
had all the big keywords for Mother's Day. We had the choice badges. Like we did not go
wow,
big enough. We turned off all our PPC early. We were just writing it
yeah,
organically and we knew we were going to go out of stock. So
yeah,
that's why we really wanted to do 2022 as well, because 2021 we were out of stock and we're like, man, if we can just repeat that, we will kill it. And the funny thing is that in 2021, Mother's Day and Easter, so Easter comes in April sometime and Mother's Day
yeah,
normally
yeah,
May, they're rather far apart because they both changed their dates. Okay. Which is tricky.
yeah,
The year after, Easter is like a week or two later, and Mother's Day
okay,
is like really early in May. So there was a little spread. And I mean, we didn't know this then, But reflecting back, it's like people don't shop for an event if the event prior to it didn't pass yet. Like the stores are still selling Easter eggs before they put out the Mother's Day gifts until
Makes
Easter's
sense.
done, and then they'll sell the Mother's Day stuff. And the buyer psychology was very similar. So here
Wow.
we are, we have our spreadsheet. We're going in all in for $1 million in a week. We have a ton of inventory. Our products were
Yeah.
about $35, $40 each. So you can do the
Okay.
math of how
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
inventory. We're
Crazy.
going all in. And our spreadsheet says our sales are supposed to start picking up. And they're not picking up.
Yeah.
And they're not coming. And I'm like, we're dead. We're dead. The COVID bubble is over. We have all this.
Yeah.
This will bankrupt the business. And we were
Yeah.
planning on selling it. We had already started, the process. And then that's when I started really mentally, that was a tough one. Cause I'm like, here we are, the successful business. And we maybe flew too close to the sun and went all in just to try to hit a target. And then that's where it was really good to have Ryan, who said, okay, listen, now you panic. I'll take control. And he kept me calm. He said, let's just control what we can, which is PPC right
Yeah.
now. And let's just go all in on that and see what
Yeah.
happens. And luckily the
Wow.
sales did come. It was just so instead of having a shallow peak, it was a condensed peak,
Yeah.
but very vertical.
Wow.
But man, that was rough. So it was emotional.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. Gotta have that co-pilot, man. That's crazy.
You need a
But it's funny
co-pilot.
that cause you could freak out, but there's really nothing you could do at that point, right? It's like
Well, that's
inventory's at Amazon. It's not like you're going to remove it, right?
Well, we were
But it is.
calculating every scenario. Removal order.
Yeah.
Can we
Yeah.
afford it? Can we pay back 8 fig for the loan? Because remember, I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh, man.
if you're planning $1 million a week, that year would have been 5 million. That means we're doing 20% of our revenue in 1 week.
Yeah.
It don't
Wow.
take forever to pay off that loan you know what I mean? So it was
Yeah.
very tough time. And the funny thing is on our biggest day we did in one day, $250,000 in one day.
Wow. Yeah.
And we're celebrating because okay, we can pay back everything. We're good. We're fine. We're breathing again. My heartburn finally goes away. And on the exact same day, Amazon shuts down one of our listings.
Oh, man.
We're like, why are they shutting down our listing? What's going on? And we're trying to investigate. And they said that a customer or two customers in a short amount of time have returned the product saying that they received the wrong product.
Oh, man.
And we're like, what's going on? So now we're diving into voice of the customer. And it's okay, what is going on here? And we see there's a lot of people receiving the wrong gift.
Oh,
We're
wow.
So we had gifts for gifts for mom, gifts for wives, sisters, daughters, grandmas. So for all the women in your life, we had the perfect gift.
Okay. Got it.
And people are ordering the mom one and they're getting the daughter one or the wrong
Okay.
color. And what we realized is our manufacturer probably most likely screwed up on the barcodes.
Oh, man.
And we just sold $1 million worth of these products. And there's
Yeah.
most likely a headache. And we're going through the due diligence of selling our company. It's all overlapping.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and it's funny because 2 weeks prior, I was panicking and because I felt we screwed up and Ryan was calm. And now here on our biggest day, he lost it. He was, you break down. And I'm like, listen,
Yeah.
we got this. And now that's when I took control. And I said, look,
Wow.
I'm in charge now. It's okay. This isn't our fault. We can solve this. You know what I mean? So it was quite the roller coaster.
Yeah. Yeah. For real.
And we got lucky because there wasn't a lot of issues in the end, but you don't know it. Hindsight bias is always the best, right? When you know it's going to be okay, then you don't panic as much. But in the moment, it could have been half of the units were wrong, but it ended up just being a small percentage. So we got very, very lucky. And the listings, when Amazon went to do a spot check on that one product, the one they pulled off the shelf was a correct one. So they reinstated the listing. We just got lucky. That was just luck.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. So tell me about, we could end with this. I know a lot of our community, they have the dream of what you guys did, build the business, scale it, sell it. What would you say were the essential levers you had to pull in the business to make it really attractive or sellable? Were you guys building team or what did that end kind of process look like to kind of get it ready for sale?
Yeah. Awesome question. So I think the strategy that we took, and one that I believe is a smart strategy, is sell it before you're ready to sell it. In the upswing as it's growing, because selling a business is a long process. For us, with everything, it's about 6 months. And that was a quick process.
That's fast. Yeah.
That's fast. And it could be, 9 months, it could be a year. And the last thing you want are sales to slow down. So you want to keep showing that during their due diligence, they're getting excited because sales are getting even better.
Yeah.
I made the right decision. And you never know what's going to happen with the market. And while you're doing this process, you got to run your company as if you're not selling it. You got to say, because until that final, and it's not even the final signature, my lawyer explained this later, until the money leaves their account into escrow, even if they signed
Yeah.
it, man, what are you going to do? Sue them? Like
Yeah.
it's tough. The lawyer said, look, whoever holds the money owns the business, right? So
Got it.
he's like, even if you have to like wait, and once the money finally released escrow and entered like our account, that's when I knew, okay, we did it. But up
Did it.
until that
Yeah.
moment, they could have just said, no, no thanks. It's too risky now with the war in Ukraine going on, the recession looming, all that
Yeah.
stuff. Like it was a very difficult time to sell. So run your
Wow.
business as if they're going to back out in the last second, and try not to get
Yeah.
too emotionally excited about the idea of being a millionaire, because that'll also add way too much pressure on.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. What about in the early stages? What were you thankful for when you sold it? You're like, man, I'm so glad we did that in the early days.
Yeah. I think Ryan can thank me a lot too for this part, because and this is the beauty of working together. So
Yeah.
we had a shared drive for our documents. And when you're
Mhm.
sharing something, it's very, in aviation, the really cool thing about aviation is we all have the same operations manual. And there are two strangers that get together that may have never seen each other, and they're flying a complex aircraft in a very complex situation, and it's a perfect dance. I know exactly what he's
Yeah.
going to do. He knows what it's like watching professional people dance, right?
Yeah.
And like the
Yeah.
salsa, they can dance salsa with any other salsa dancer. Um, and I said, look, if we're going to work together, all of our folders on our computer have to be organized and numbered. And I have to know exactly that if I'm looking for something, most likely you saved it here. So our
Got it.
entire like computer system was extremely organized with numbers as if they're like Bible
Yeah.
chapters. You know what I mean? It would go down. And you would always
Yeah.
know, okay, it's legal, it's in chapter 5. So you go in, chapter 5 is
Got it.
legal, then it's the trademark, all that stuff, patents, whatever it is. And
Wow.
that initial structure and being very organized makes the due diligence process extremely smooth and quick, because you know
Mm.
exactly what it is. We recorded everything and saved it. And another thing that
Cool.
we kind of did along the way, and this is why we got into selling our spreadsheets.
Yeah.
So Ryan's the mad scientist, right? Genius brain that's all over the place with it. And I'm a bit more structured and focused, and I like logic. And that's kind of a good mix. And he would build this fun spreadsheet, and then he'd put it on like somewhere on his computer. And then like 2 weeks later, I'd be like, hey, remember 2 weeks ago, you built that spreadsheet. Let's use it for this new product. And he's like, oh yeah, let me see if I can find it. He would spend like 30 minutes looking for it. He's like, I think I deleted it by accident. And I'm like, dude, no, we can't keep, he's like, I'll just build you a new one. I'm like, yeah, but we can't always just restart. It's like, and then I like, to trick us, I said, we gotta build these sheets to make them so pretty that we could sell them to other people, just so that we'd want to keep them. And I said, we can use them for multiple products, so they don't just work for this one product, it'll work for all of our products. And just by doing that, we were able to scale quicker. So for example, our purchase orders, we would build them on Excel, make them pretty, and you would just fill out how many quantities you want of which to use, and it would auto-populate the entire contract, everything with the placeholders.
Yeah.
And even though our company is small, we had like 3 products initially, we made that Excel spreadsheet work for 1,000 SKUs.
Wow.
And I said, if
Yeah.
I'm growing the business, there's no way I'm
Yeah.
coming back. I won't have time to change this Excel sheet. So we
Yeah.
would always, when we started the business, I always planned bigger than I currently was. And I would recommend that too. Like if you're putting the time
Yeah.
initially, think that you're bigger than you are. And that
Wow.
allowed us to scale quickly, because we didn't have to then go back and change all of our tools that we had already built.
Yeah. Wow. Such wisdom, David. Man, thanks for sharing. I love this. I want to see these spreadsheets now. So, David, like, where can people connect with you online? Where can they check out your stuff?
Yeah. So we have a website, divanstrategic.com. We also have a Facebook group. It's called Divan.group. It's on
Okay.
Facebook. It's fun. Like it's a very small group, you know, but we sometimes just jump on random calls. We call it the Divan Exchange, just to catch up with
Cool.
people, see what they're up to. It's free. Just exchange, strategize. That's why it's strategic, right?
Yeah.
We're currently working, like you said, as consultants. We're consulting actually 8Fig. We're building some really cool forecasting tools with them. They ended up
Cool.
loving our Excel sheets so much that we're turning them into a software with them for their sellers, which is really
Wow.
cool. And
Cool.
so if anyone like wants to get on our beta list that'll get free access to the software via 8Fig, we're looking for people, connect your sales numbers. We'll figure it out together. And yeah, we're just having fun staying in the space without being in the trenches anymore as brand owners.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the main reason we kind of spoke about this before was, I almost, as soon as we exited, there were so many opportunities that came. So many. Everyone wants to work with you. Our story
Yeah.
went viral. All the podcasts had us on, It was very lucky, perfect picture exit or picture perfect exit. And we almost bought into another brand that I was really excited about. And my wife, luckily, she's like, hey, listen, Dave, why are we doing this? It's like, if it's for the money, we don't need it right now. Our two kids, they literally, the last 3 years, I was mentally in the business all day. You always are. Even if you're on vacation, hey, you're thinking about your business. That's the downside to entrepreneurship. And the nice thing was once we exited, she's like, look, this is the first time you don't have to think about it all the time. You don't have to do business all. You can go on vacation and not do it. So our strategy was, okay, I'll consult people, I'll help people, but it's
Yeah.
like babysitting or being a
Yeah.
grandparent, It's like, hey, you're
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
parent. You take that kid back, he's crying,
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why we shifted kind of to consulting
Oh.
more and babysitting now instead of owning
Yeah.
instead of being the parent. We've been parents. And once the kids are older, I'm definitely going to do it again. I'll definitely do my
Yeah.
own brand, my way.
Cool.
It'll be fun. But I'll wait till
Yeah.
the kids don't want to speak to me anymore when they're teenagers.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool, man. Well, so good, guys. I'll put all those show links. I'll put all the links in the show notes. Definitely connect with David, dive into some of this stuff. If he's speaking your language, go follow his journey and get some strategic consulting.
Oh,
So
thank you.
David, for being on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks, dude.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Rainmaker Family Show. If you're not a part of our mastermind yet, I want to say I think you're missing out. Our heart here at Rainmaker is to create total abundance for you. That's why we're offering a free one-on-one family freedom design session for you, our faithful listener.
Yeah, if you want to hop on a call with our team, see if it's a good fit to build a business that creates time freedom for you, financial abundance, and helps you leave that thriving family legacy. That's what we're all about in our mastermind. You can grab a time on our team's calendar at rainmakerfamily.com/mastermind. Again, that's rainmakerfamily.com/mastermind.